Canon just released Firmware 1.1.0 for the EOS R5 Mark II and the R1. They were released in Japan earlier this morning, but hours afterwards, Canon pulled the update. Why was the update pulled? And what were the countless enhancements and fixes provided in Firmware 1.1.0? We've got all the answers, but first, please punch that subscribe button. It takes just a second and it means an awful lot to us. It's totally free and we greatly appreciate it. Hi, I'm Simon, your friendly photographic correspondent who trolls through the rumor mill and the news sites so that you don't have to. And we caught something really big this morning. I haven't had a chance to download Canon's latest firmware update for the R5 Mark II and the R1 before Canon had gone ahead and recalled it, pulled it back. Canon released a series of firmware updates for the EOS R5 Mark II and the R1, along with the R3, the R5 Mark I, the R6 Mark II, R7, R8, R10, R50, R50V, C400, C80, C70, R5C, XF605, PowerShot V1, and the V10. We'll cover off all the enhancements and bug fixes later in this video, and I can tell you that there's an awful lot of them. But now let's head to our top story. In the firmware of mirrorless cameras EOS R1 and EOS R5 Mark II, it was pointed out that if you use a card that's more than 2 terabytes in capacity and shoot video with pre-capture settings, it can't be played on a camera or PC. We're currently suspending downloads for cause investigation. Come back to this page later as we'll let you know here how we plan to respond in the future. Even if you've already downloaded the following firmware, please do not update it. We sincerely apologize for any inconvenience caused to our customers. And this is why I'm always recommending every video, don't go ahead and download the latest firmware update without at least waiting a week or two. And every time I get pushback saying, don't tell me what to do, I'm not telling anybody what to do. It's a recommendation because when it comes to ever since the dawn of software, whenever firmware updates, software updates have been provided, it happens that not every time, but occasionally, we get updates that break something while fixing something else or just completely brick everything up. So my suggestion, my advice, is to wait a week or two and, well, if we don't hear anything at that point, then it's probably safe to do an update. Now, this is far from the first time that a firmware update has been pulled due to issues after release. Do you recall firmware 1.3.0 on the Canon EOS R6 Mark I, I believe it was? It bricked the camera under certain situations. And firmware 1.8.0 on the Canon EOS R5 Mark I, well, that one was pulled and immediately replaced within a few days with 1.8.1, or that same day. I can't remember, it's a little while ago now. And then here we are with 1.1.0 being pulled immediately after release. So if you want to stay up to date, make sure you subscribe so that way you can be kept informed on when Canon releases new firmware updates. But now let's go over the many enhancements and fixes firmware 1.1.0 provided. This has got to be the longest list that I've seen in years, so why don't we go ahead and start with the enhancements and added capabilities before we get into the bug fixes. The security functions have been improved in various ways. A password can now be requested when you power on the camera. You can, of course, change the settings so that the password screen doesn't appear. And you can check a history of password changes, network information changes, etc. And this is a nice enhancement. We can now update the firmware on the camera alone by downloading it from the internet. I think what Canon's getting at here is that we can, using the camera itself, download the firmware update without having to do it through a SD card or CF Express card. A Finder Display Priority Mode has been added, which turns on the viewfinder when the camera's rear sensor detects a person. That 100 and 120 Hz flicker can now be automatically detected during live view. It's now possible to register the focus position in the preset function of the camera's remote application, the CR-A100. When used with a robotic camera system, the CR-S700R, this makes it easier for the photographer to focus on the intended subject. This makes it easier for the photographer to focus on the intended subject distance and take pictures. As we talked about yesterday, Canon added panning assist to the menu. When panning with a compatible lens, camera shake correction and subject blur correction are performed during exposure. And as we talked about yesterday, Canon added Servo AF, which is suitable for shooting subjects through a net, such as sports like badminton and volleyball, or hockey. Canon added support for the digital camera software development kit, and a new function has been added that allows you to protect an image at the same time as rating it. And as we talked about yesterday, Canon now supports CF Express cards up to 8 terabytes, which apparently has been the source of the recall. Well, I don't have to go into issues. We already covered that in the beginning of the video, so if you skip to this point, you might want to go back and watch the beginning of the video. So as far as accessing cards over 8 terabytes, it will require a low-level format in the camera, and any card over 8 terabytes will be treated as an 8 terabyte card. However, this one is a little strange. Cards over 2 terabytes can't be used for firmware updates. A setting has been added to lower the image capture frame rate to prevent heat generation when connecting the CR-A100 and taking remote shots over long periods of time. And when transferring images with the voice memos via FTP, the older transfer has been changed to voice memo, then image. Also, if a voice memo is added to an image waiting to be transferred, the image and voice memo will be transferred last. And the number of shots recorded during pre-continuous shooting can now be set in single increments. That's got to put a smile on many people's faces, including myself. I really like I like that I can adjust this. This is pretty cool. Airplane mode has been added to the shooting button customization, and it's now possible to simulate exposure when using a strobe. And our last enhancements before we get to the bug fixes, AI tracking performance has been improved for subjects that are difficult to focus on when shooting video. Anytime they improve the autofocus capabilities, I'm all in for that. But now we have a list of fixes, and we've got about a page of them. So again, this is going to take us probably about a minute to get through. There's quite a few of the fixes. Canon fixed several issues where the error 70 would show up. The first during Bluetooth communication due to an interference with other Bluetooth devices. Or in two rare situations. The first, when repeatedly shooting in high-speed continuous shooting, and when shooting with the electronic shutter immediately after starting up the camera. And in very rare situations, when recording video with the FHD 239.8 P200p setting, or shooting in 240 frames per second. They also fixed an issue where error 70 would show up when using the camera in movie mode with the frame rate set to 50p and movie digital IS set to on or strong. They fixed another issue where error 70 would occur while waiting to shoot. Pre-recording was set to on, and auto transfer to image Canon was set to yes. We're almost there, folks, just 4 more to go. Canon also fixed an issue that could cause the camera to stop working properly if review was set to off and the monitor displayed a low brightness image after taking pre-continuous shots. They fixed an issue that could cause video recording to be impossible when using remote live view shooting in the EOS utility with HDMI out. And they fixed an issue where large raw images could not be transferred via Camera Connect. And finally, they fixed an issue of being unable to connect to a Wi-Fi 7 compatible router. I told you there were an awful lot of updates to Firmware 1.1.0 for the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the R1. Now, once Canon releases a fix solving the issues with accessing, do I have it here? Cards, CF Express cards larger than 2 terabytes, such as this 4 terabyte Angelbird card, well, I'll be sure to let you know. So make sure you click the subscribe button so that way you can stay up to date with the latest camera news and rumors. Now, I suggest waiting at least a week or two to see if any other further issues have been reported. This isn't the first time that we've had issues, and, you know, we're lucky in this situation that it's only really an issue for people that are shooting video with cards larger than 2 terabytes with pre-capture. However, if you are one of those people not being able to access your video, well, that's kind of a big deal. I can just imagine if I got back from Vancouver with about 1.2 terabytes of footage, finding out that a lot of my video was not accessible, I'd be very angry indeed. So, unfortunately, 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. Now, if you've downloaded the firmware update, I wouldn't use it. I would wait. Even if you're not planning on using cards larger than 2 terabytes, I would just wait because, again, we don't know what other issues could be here. And I would say that with almost any update to software, operating systems, or cameras or other electronics, whenever they release a new update, chances are something has been broken through that update, something that wasn't properly tested. So it's always best to wait a little bit, see if the news comes out and says, hey, something blew up, you're okay. Now, if this isn't your profession and you don't care if your camera's partially bricked or inconsistently working, then knock yourself out. Go ahead and download the latest update. Now, as soon as Canon does release probably what will be 1.1.1, despite my advice, I'll go ahead and automatically install it so that way over the next weeks I can test it. So when I come out to you and say there aren't any issues, not only can I say there aren't any reported issues, but I, myself, haven't encountered anything. And it's, in a way, because I wish I hadn't gone to 1.1.3, I wish I had stayed on 1.1.2. This is where I kind of need two cameras, so one can be my camera that I rely on, the other one that I can just download the latest firmware update and not worry about it. Anyhow, thank you so much for tuning into this very long-winded video because, well, there was an awful lot to cover off in firmware 1.1.0 for the Canon EOS R5 Mark II and the R1. Thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, a great weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Oh, and one more thing. If you have updated the firmware and aren't experiencing any issues or are experiencing issues that are different from the ones reported, please let us know in the comment section down below. Thanks so much for watching. Have yourself a great day, and we'll see you again soon.